all three main fissionable materials. You call it uranium-235, this is what you are doing today. Plutonium, we already started doing in here at Kalpakkam, and in the coming years in this power grid reactor, and uranium-233 which comes from thorium, and this is in the coming years. To meet the challenge of reaching energy independence through a well-calculated deployment of domestic uranium and thorium resources. Next one, please. To give a brief idea, see, for example, the PHWR, what we have, we call it pressurized water reactor. Now, this number is changed. This is 17 are operating with around 4,420 megawatt critical power stations. And we see here what we call this availability factor is more than 85%. This is because initially we had some problems, no doubt on that, but now teething problem. Later, it is stabilized quite well. And this is stage 1 is the PHWRs, stage 2 is a breeder reactor. To have the breeder reactor, we went with a 40 megawatt thermal FBTR, which is in operation since past 20 years, and 500 megawatt is under construction in advanced stages of construction. This will go critical, this will be our lifeline in the coming years. And later, the thorium based reactors. Next one,
sir, one question. CEA figures, latest figures say availability factor is 40% for nuclear.
this is because you are, but the point is that's why the reactors are operating instead of 220 only for few years. Then later there is
Fuel shortage.
yeah, fuels. This is the different type of reactors. I have a map of the atomic energy stations in the country. I am not going to show you that. We have around 4,000 and 1,020 megawatt electrical at different places in the country. And the projects under construction is this, as you will notice, the Kodungalam nuclear project unit 1 and 2. This is a 2 units of 1,000 light water reactors what are coming from our very close good friend Russia, and 2 more units are already under what you call coming. I think okay, I think that's not the timing. Very clean, reliable, dependable, and it addresses climate changes and energy security. And this is all the because of the competitive advantage. And with respect to the power, our good friend Professor was mentioning regarding the cost this morning. Believe me, Tarapur Atomic Power Station was supplying at 2.5 paise per unit. Is the unit that is supplied, and this is because of the earlier generation. Later, it is coming to around 3 paisa per unit. This is all the figures, my dear. Okay. And, no, sorry, 3 rupees. 3 rupees. Well, I would like to end up my brief presentation before I give the floor to our colleagues. As you know, in 1990, if we talk about history, about 11.3 trillion kilowatt hours is the world energy. And it is planned to have around 33.3 trillion kilowatt hours by 2030 year. This is how the number is. But as on call it today, as we all know, around 18,000 billion kilowatt hours is produced in the whole world today, out of which only 4% is from India. That is the order of around 700 billion kilowatt hours. And there is a large amount of commitment is required by different agencies. Dr. Baba used to say in those days, no power is costlier than no power. This is his slogan. So the point is, we have to have, just like we have 5 fingers in our hand, we have to push all the resources to meet our energy requirements, and both from the short-term strategy point of view and long-term strategy point of view. So at the end of the talk, I will show you one more slide. And now, let me have the pleasure of inviting our speakers. They came all the way, and we are particularly thankful to them. And immediately now, let me have the pleasure of requesting Dr. Sri Kumar His talk will be on a decade on Indian power sector reforms. Shall I go as per this statement?
Yes.
This is that. Please correct me if I'm wrong, my dear Mr. Sati.
I can even speak for 10 minutes
No.
if it helps to have a discussion, because I think it's a rather boring thing to keep on listening. So I will finish in 10 minutes.
Time. Yes, that's what I was also having in my mind.
Yes.
Sure. It should not be one way.
Yes. So I am Sri Kumar. I am an electrical engineer, and one of the things that happened today morning's session was Professor Alam told us that we should not look for technological solutions. For quite some time, I worked in the industry and I was looking at more technology, engineering technology, electrical technology. But for the last 10 years, I worked with a voluntary organization called Prayas, which is a policy analysis group. And one thing I have learned is that there is much more to getting a solution than technology. So I'll just quickly take through my presentation. A little bit about my organization, Prayas. We are a voluntary organization based in Pune. Prayas in the Indian language means focused effort. We are a research group. We work primarily in the electricity sector, and our focus is on protection of public interest. By public interest, we mean the interest of a large number of underprivileged in the country and promotion of environmental sustainability. So for that purpose, we write, we speak, we listen, and we participate in many forums like this, policy forums and regulatory forums. We have a lot of publications. All our publications are available at our website, which is there in the first slide itself. That is prayaspune.org. So what I plan to do is that, if you see many of the speakers have spoken about energy, the context of energy security has been outlined in the brief paper that Professor Misra sent to us, that we should ensure lifeline energy for all. But there is a very high focus in that note on supply and price. They are very important. Supply is important, price is very important. But equally important is ensuring that there are institutional mechanisms to ensure that this energy reaches the people who need. And therefore there are many other risks. Like environment risk is one thing that many people have talked about. And we have to see how to handle them. And especially since I am going to talk about reforms, I think there is a need to understand what is the reform model that makes sense. We have had reforms for now, actually not even a decade, even more than maybe 1.5 decades in the power sector. But I will be coming to the critique of the reforms. One of the things is that these models were not very much based on the ground situation. And therefore, I think we stand in a better situation today that we can learn from the past. And I agree that today I am going to talk primarily about grid-connected electricity. But in the Indian context, you would be knowing that 30 to 35% of the energy supply, the total energy supply, is non-commercial. It doesn't come to the market at all. And actually, one of the main energy used in this country is cooking, for which the energy source is not at all a commercial energy source. But I will not be getting into those issues. I will not be getting into fuel supply issues like coal, gas, etc. I am only going to talk about the power sector as a whole. So, just to make it clear to our Russian friends, perhaps this gives a overall picture of the energy power electricity sector in India with around 40 lakh gigawatt capacity, 120 million consumers, and nearly 1/3 energy lost in transit. And this loss in terms of cash is nearly 1% of the GDP. The consumer mix is something like this. We have that 1/3 is industry, and 1/4 is households and farms. If you look at who owns the sector, in spite of nearly a decade and a half of reforms, primarily the generation and distribution even today largely remains in the state sector. Nearly 90% of the generation and 90% of the distribution remains with the state sector. The state sector may be central or state government owned. So whatever reform models that we talk of should be talking about how to handle this situation. And if you look at the three axes of the sector, in the policy area, there is a very overriding role by the central government, that is the national government, whereas operation is primarily with the state government, and regulation is with the central government as well as the state governments. And today in the sector, the overriding act is the Electricity Act, which was passed in 2003. So when you want to look at the whole reform over a decade, I divided into three phases. The first phase was the privatization of generation, which started with the generation being opened up for private companies. And from around 95 to 2003, where the state sectors were unbundled, this was largely supported by international financial institutions like the World Bank and ADB. And what we have now is from 2003 onwards, after the Electricity Act. So the major sector reforms in India happened with support from the World Bank and ADB, and you can see that nearly half the country were covered by loans from these two multilateral development banks, and many of these sectors, state sectors, were so-called reformed, and some of them were supported by the bank, World Bank, some of them supported by the ADB. But even though there was a plan, there was a very well laid out plan, 10-year plan, but this plan was not sort of executed in complete way, except in one state, that is in Orissa. So only in Orissa and Delhi was the total privatization of the sector happened. And after, let's say, 7-8 years, today World Bank is not operating the sector in a big way. So if you want to capture the three key shifts, the paradigm shifts in the reform, I would put it three. One is the policy shift, structural shift, ownership shift. The policy shift was, from independence till 80s, 90s, there was a very high focus on self-reliance, be it in technology or fuel. Fuel means large dependence on coal. Technology means promoting agencies like Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. This was a very cornerstone of the policy. And the second part was electricity was never looked like a commodity. It was almost like an instrument of social policy. It is like a development input. So there were subsidies, there was a conscious decision to give low tariff to some kind of consumers. Some areas were not profitable in the economic sense. So from that it was shifted to making electricity like a commodity, and the tariff being based on either cost-based or from cost-based moving more to market kind of tariff. The utility structure was integrated. With the reform, the structure sort of broke down to first to corporatizing and sometimes privatizing, and started shifting from almost 100% state ownership to private ownership, and as I said, it is now around 11 to 12% private ownership. Now, if you look at the reforms were started by what is called a crisis. Some kind of crisis was there. It was triggered by the crisis. So some reforms were planned, some impacts were expected, and there was a reaction to this whole reform program, and because of that there was public reaction. So actual implementation was not as per what was planned, and because of this reaction of the public, there was a sort of change in the way reforms were implemented. So I'll just take you through the steps. The crisis, if you look at the articulation of the crisis that started in, that was done by the government or international financial institutions, there was 4 dimensions of the crisis. Financial crisis, electricity boards are broke, the sector is broke, there is no money for investment. There is a performance crisis because losses are very high, corruption is high, and there is a social and equity crisis in the sense that even after this many years we are not able to reach this electricity and energy to large number of population. There is an environmental crisis because there is a limit to the kind of water bodies we have, forests that we have. We are a very densely populated country, and the environmental crisis. And the reaction was also based on that. So the solution to the financial crisis was induction of private capital. A lot of attention on efficiency. By efficiency, it is meant of commercial efficiency. Giving power to low tariff consumer is not efficiency. So efficiency is commercial efficiency. and therefore there was a move to eliminate all kinds of subsidies. There was a move to privatize and corporatize, and regulation was introduced in a way to distance the interference of the political system with the bureaucracy, and there was unbundling. So when this happened, like if you see what has happened, today's status, if you see, unbundling, most of the sectors have been unbundled, privatization has been implemented in few utilities, in fact in 2 states, regulatory commissions have been set up, there is efficiency focus, which is a positive thing. We have electricity markets today in the bulk area, not at the retail level. But what is not implemented, even today, we don't have full cost recovery of the tariff. Even today, there is a large subsidy in terms of cross subsidy and state subsidy in the electricity sector. So what has happened because of this is that there has been many impacts. Because of privatization, there has been a whole lot of new actors in the field, which has increased competition definitely, increased competitiveness to some extent. Reduction of subsidy has meant lack of availability of supply to a large number of people. Regulation has in a sense made the little bit of distance between the political and bureaucracy, with its own improvement in terms of transparency and participation. But one of the things that has been neglected is energy efficiency, renewables, equity consideration has been by and large neglected. And if you look at we have come up with this formulation. The sector the whole society has been fragmented into 4 groups. The big consumers who are largely benefited by many of these steps because you have access to quality power at low cost. Urban consumers also have largely benefited, but the rural consumers and non-consumers, if you ask them, they are by and large even now unsatisfied with what has happened. So, but today, even if you look at the World Bank's own review of what has happened, they themselves feel that the push to privatization was not a very good thing. The Orissa model has its own problems. In fact, Andhra Pradesh state, this particular state, which didn't follow the model strictly, has done actually relatively much better, even though the sector is largely public owned. Regulatory commissions, as I said, have improved the decision making a little bit better. Industry tariffs have either reduced or remained same. So even today, what we should understand is that state role continues, either in terms of ownership or in terms of operation or in terms of regulation. State has a very significant role, and it is a very important issue in the political setup, and that is why we have still a lot of very non-market kind of phenomena like free power. Power is free to agricultural consumers. We have massive rural electrification program, which is one of the most massive government program today. Nearly 500 crores per year is on rural electrification. There is a large amount of investment going on distribution improvement, and even though since industry tariff has not gone up, the cross subsidy has reduced, but many states this government's subsidy has gone up. So it is true, the political system has reduced their power to take minute-to-minute decisions have reduced, but they still follow, they play a big role in the policy. But the fact is the matter is today still the sector crisis continues in terms of small consumers, their tariff, for some of them for whom the tariff is low like farmers, they complain about very poor service quality, and shortage continues, which anybody who has lived in India for a week would understand that it is only cities which are spared of power cuts, villages and small towns have even few hours of power cuts. So what to do? This is just a graph where we see that the tariff to the small consumers is like, this is a Rajasthan graph where the tariff to the small consumers can be quite high unless there is state intervention, which is happening in Maharashtra, where there is a special tariff for very poor consumers, because of which they get a very low tariff. I am just trying to show this graph to emphasize the point that state intervention continues. These are my last 2 slides. See, what should we do? I think that is the idea of this whole workshop. That's why IPE and ICSR has organized this workshop. So it's not that I have a solution, but I only want to say that whatever solution that we come up with should be based on an approach that is broad-based. It can't be based on just one ideology of privatization or interest of one actor. We should be able to take care of all actors. And for example, grid power may not be the thing at all for large population of this country. And it should be, in that sense, any process that we have should involve all stakeholders, and definitely it should not be, it cannot be a technological fix. Any kind of technological fix will not work in the field. And there should be an explicit focus on environmental sustainability. This has become extremely important. Integrated, just one example, integrated energy policy is definitely a positive step in our energy planning. It talks about large increase in need to increase our generation capacity significantly. It talks about how much coal plants are needed, how much hydro is needed. But first, we sat and did an analysis of how much land is needed, how much water is needed if you need to set up this kind of hydro plants and coal plants. And we have already started having problems to meet this kind of requirements. Unless you take this environmental sustainability into account, this project will not see the light of the day. And therefore I say that the situation is very different today from the immediate situation which was immediately after the post-independence, where we had a coherent political system. We had a large number of consensus on what is good for the country. Today there are multiple interests that is present in the country, and there is unless we have a very democratic, transparent process, I think we will not be able to have successful solutions. So I have only a process solution to give, that unless we have able to improve the capacity of the citizens to participate in a sensible decision making, we may not be able to succeed.